Amazing how things work out. I went to that conference in Sanford. I was standing there in line to get a gyro, and I heard Daniel was right in front of me. And I heard him mention Southern Pines, and I hit him on the shoulder. Hey, man, that's where I grew up at. And one thing led to another, and now I'm here. You know? It's crazy. And I don't see anybody I used to drink with. It's kind of disappointing. I graduated from Pinecrest in '99, and I've only been back here twice, both times for funerals. So it's nice to be back here for a different purpose. My sobriety date's July 2nd, 2015. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor, as you heard, and have a home group in High Point, North Carolina. We meet on Mondays at noon. It's the St. Mary's Lunch Bunch. If you're ever in that area, it's a great meeting. All right. I think that's all the housekeeping part, so I'm going to take this off now and get a little more comfortable before we get real. All right, so you know the drill. I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Brief backstory, the early years. My parents divorced before I could remember. My dad moved down here, Aberdeen. Me and my younger sister stayed with my mom. I have two older sisters as well. They're 11 years older, so they were kind of out of the picture by the time I could really remember as far as living in the house. And we'd come down for visitation, and my dad was always on really good behavior, and we always had a good time. He always had a game plan, like what we're doing that weekend. It was thrilling. And I knew he drank, but didn't think anything more than that. He always had beer with him in the truck when he was driving to pick us up. You know, always had a cooler behind the seat. And I wanted to move in with him. You know, I missed my dad. And in the summer before 6th grade, I moved down here to Aberdeen, North Carolina. And once I moved in with him, his drinking became it was way more noticeable. He wasn't hiding it like he was when he was just on good behavior on the weekends. And if you had asked me in my 20s why I drank the way I drank, or why I did the things I did, I would have told you, I'd have blamed it all on him. I'm a victim. You would have drank the way I did if you saw what I saw and went through what I went through. And now I know that he was just doing the best he could with the tools he was given. And I drank that way because I am an alcoholic. And it wasn't his fault. But to paint a little picture of what the house was like, he was just a big brother. And I didn't really have rules that most kids have. Like, for instance, it's the only time I'm going to mention anything that's an outside issue. 6th grade, he catches me and some friends partaking in a green leafy substance, and he kicks them out of the house and told me, I've been waiting for this moment your whole life, and taught me how to roll up. And every night when David Letterman started the top 10 list, we sparked up until I left to go to college. So that just give you an idea of what home was like. My house was the house everybody came to after school and hung out at. If you drank, you had to leave your keys, you had to spend the night, but that was the only rule. And I played ball all year long, so I'd have practice after school and come home, and there'd be a dozen of my friends hanging out with my dad. So there was never a curfew, there was never the normal kid rules. You know, I had to make good grades, and he wanted me to be successful in athletics. And school came easy, and I was naturally good at athletics. And I didn't start drinking. Drinking wasn't my main thing in high school. The other thing was my main thing. But I didn't think about this until I had a couple years of sobriety. From the first time I got drunk, I drank till I blacked out. I never stopped. I never had that thought of, this is a good point right now. Like, I'm at a good social buzz. I'll just maintain this. It was always more. I drank till I threw up and blacked out from the very beginning. I am 100% a blackout drinker. And so I did good enough in school and did enough in athletics to get a scholarship to NC State. Played baseball, half academic, half baseball. And when I got there, I was on the team for a couple weeks before I was asked not to come back. Because the coach breathalyzed everybody before practice one day, and we went out to an adult bar with ladies, For the first time ever in my life with the seniors and breathalyzed, and me and two other guys failed and got asked not to come back. But I say that because at that time I was like, it's fine. I'm done with baseball. There's 40,000 students here. There's parties every night. There's girls everywhere. I don't want to focus on baseball anymore. This is a blessing. I heard a speaker early on say, a normal person will change their behavior to reach their goals. An alcoholic will change their goals to fit their behavior. And that hit me between the eyes. That is me my whole life. I changed my goals to fit my behavior from that point on. So I still did good in school, even though I was blacking out 3 or 4 nights a week. And, I discovered liquor. And before college, it was just my dad's beer and occasionally liquor. Occasionally somebody would have it. But when I got to college and had access to liquor, I figured out that this is my jam. This is what I've been missing. And it was like straight to tequila and vodka from an early on point. And I have always been, from that point on, an around-the-clock drinker. I never waited till 5 o'clock. I wanted to have a buzz throughout the day. I drank from as soon as I woke up. I'd go to class. I'd take shots in between class or do the other thing and then drink more. Always did everything with somewhat of a buzz. But I never had any consequences. I did good in school. I didn't get in much trouble first couple years. And then some dings started happening. Like I started getting in bar fights and getting arrested for that, and underage drinking on occasion, and public disruptiveness. But those were all badges of honor. That's all feeding the ego. You drink and party like I do, that's going to happen. Never once crossed my mind that not every other student is doing this, and this is not normal behavior. This is just what you get when you're living my lifestyle. Keep on partying. So the first time that I actually had some real consequences, my first Dewey, we were at the beach. My family went down. We're going down for a week. Me and my younger sister went down 2 days early. The first night, I DD'd. Now, I still drink, but I didn't get Johnny Blackout drunk. That was my nickname. I blacked out so much. My name's Jon Black. My nickname is Johnny Blackout. I didn't get Johnny Blackout, and I drove us home. And the next night, she was supposed to return a favor. So we're leaving the bowling alley in Wilmington, heading down Oleander, and she's driving the wrong way down Oleander. And if y'all know Wilmington, that's a bad road to drive the wrong way down. So I got her to pull over. I took over. We pulled up to the house we're staying at. I got out of the car. Then the cop pulls in the driveway with his lights on. And I thought if I was out of the car with the keys in my hand, you couldn't give me a DWI, but you can. And I learned the hard way. That doesn't matter. He saw me driving. And it was all because she had a burned out taillight. So it wasn't my fault. It was her fault. She was supposed to be DDing. We drove her car because she was DDing, and she had the burned out taillight. And once again, it's not me, it's her fault. So it's just another ding. I don't got to change anything. I don't need to change my behavior. That's just bad luck, bad timing, bad circumstances. But it was the first time that I had to go to AA. Part of my punishment was 20 AA meetings, get your sheet signed. And I walked in and I saw God on the board, and I saw that I was 30 years younger than everybody else, and I did not belong in this cult, and I was going to sit in the back and get my sheet signed, and I didn't hear a word anybody said. I don't belong here. This is unfair. This is unjust. I'm just sign my sheet and get me out. That was my first experience with AA. Definitely not my last. So graduated college, decided instead of getting a job with my degree, because I changed my goals to fit my behavior, I kept on bartending, and ended up getting a job as a beer sales rep in Charlotte. So I moved to Charlotte to be a beer sales rep for Red Oak Brewery, and that lasted about 2 years until I got another offer to bartend again and went back to bartending. So by this time, I'm drinking more than a fifth a day, and if you breathalyze me at any point during the day, I'd have blown over a 0.2. I just stayed drunk. I'm 23, 24 years old. And I had my next real consequence. I was bartending during the day, so I'm drinking while I'm working. going to a baseball game that night, Charlotte Knights game. I pounded 2 pint glasses full of rum and Coke, like rum to the top and just enough Coke, because I got to make them. Just enough Coke that barely trickled down the sides. Chugged them real quick, got in my truck, made it 3/4 of a mile to a stoplight and got rear-ended by another drunk driver. Cop shows up. Now, that liquor's still in my stomach, right? It hasn't hit me yet, besides what I had all day, but I'm used to that. That's my normal. So, cop shows up. This guy fails the field sobriety test. He says he smells alcohol on me. I tell him I just had a couple of drinks. I'm a bartender right up the road, yada, yada. And he gives me a field sobriety test. I ace it. But he asked me if I take a breathalyzer too. And for some reason, I agreed to. And this is like 5:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, like middle of the week. And I blew a .40. Yeah, .40, 5 times the legal limit. And he said, my machine must be broken. I was like, absolutely. Then I became a doctor. At .3, I should be in a coma. I shouldn't be able to speak to you. There's no way, And man, I almost talked myself out of it. But he said, I'm gonna take you downtown, and we'll use the machine there. By the time we got downtown, I blacked out. That's all that liquor hit me. And the next thing I remember is in Charlotte, they take you to the magistrate that morning at like 3 a.m. underneath the road through a tunnel to the magistrate's office. I see a head nodding back there. Yeah. There's no getting away from it. So we went to the magistrate, and I'm still drunk. And I'm kind of listening to what the cop was saying. But the main thing he said was, Your Honor, this man passed the field sobriety test and he blew a .40. So he told me, the magistrate said, you're a danger to yourself and to society. You're being committed to rehab. So I had 10 days of detox in a 28-day program. And they ankle cuffed me, handcuffed me, chained down the middle, and took me to rehab. And I walked in the doors to the state-run facility in Billingsley Road in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I did not belong. All these people in here, they need your help, not me. I'm Jon Black. I'm too cool. I'm too smart. I'm too unique. I don't need this. So full of ego. And but after 10 days, when I finally got to go to the in-house meetings where AA and NA and all them showed up, this lady got up there to tell her story, and she introduced herself as an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And it hit me between the eyes. And I thought, I've never felt so seen. That is exactly what I am. An egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I want you to think that I'm all proud about myself, but inside I know I don't quite measure up. I just know I'm not living up to what I should be doing. I know that things are not right. But I put this image out there, and I want you to see the hands and believe the show, And I thought from that moment on, like, okay, I'm going to open my mind up a little bit and see what this is all about. And by the end of that 28 days, I was saying I'm an alcoholic. Now, I've been saying that for years, but I said it once again as, I'm an alcoholic. I'll drink you and your family underneath the table. It was a badge of honor thing. And this was the first time I was saying I'm an alcoholic, and I think I need some help. Just a little bit, though. Not as much as y'all, just a little bit. And so when I got out, I got a sponsor that I could manipulate. I got a home group with no structure. I tell you to your face that I'm doing the things that you say do, but as soon as I walked away, I'm doing it my way, and I got drunk. And I did that for 7 years. 4 28-day programs, 1 14-day program, detox at least 15 times. The wheels would fall off. I'd need some kind of a reprieve where somebody else was in charge of me, and I'd go to check myself in. I'd get some clarity. Okay, I'm going to do it better this time. Not all the way, because I don't need all the help. I'm going to try it this way this time. Drunk, over and over and over again. I tried waiting till 5 o'clock. I tried only drinking beer. One time, y'all, I tried drinking champagne only, because I don't like champagne, so I can't get Johnny Blackout on champagne. And then one night I drank 7 big bottles of Andre, and I had GERD for like 3 weeks. Like all that carbonation, it just tore me up. It was disgusting. I do not recommend that method. And then finally I decided that it was Charlotte's fault. Because it can't be mine, right? It's Charlotte. I got to get away from my name, my reputation, the people, everything in Charlotte. So I moved to Pittsboro, North Carolina, where my mom and sisters live. There's only 2 bars in Pittsboro. I can't be this version of me there. Within 2 weeks, I was banned from both bars in Pittsboro. And I went back at my 1-year sobriety mark and tried to make an amends at both of those places, and they still wouldn't let me in. But I still don't know what I did or what happened. No idea. It still eats at me. Like, what happened that bad? So, I didn't know anybody in Pittsburgh besides family, and they definitely didn't want me to be drunk around them. So for the first time, I isolated drinking. I liked to be the guy liquor drunk in the middle of a scene at a bar. That was my scene. Like wild out somewhere. I was never a stay home and get drunk, but now I was. And I was drinking a half gallon of Burnett's flavored vodka a day at home, mixing it with Four Loko. Because in the morning, my hands would shake so bad, I couldn't hold the cup, so I'd put a straw in the Four Loko and chug some just to make enough room to pour vodka in the Four Loko, and then chug the vodka Four Loko, and then my hands would calm down. And then I could drink the second drink. And this time, I'm 30 years old, 32. So that went on for a little bit, and then I got to one of those, like, man, I got to have some help. I got to go get another reprieve, so I'm going to check myself in. So July 2nd, 2015, I checked myself in the detox in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And when I walked in the doors, my mom drove me. When I walked in, they said, you have to have something in your system to be admitted here, because I'd been talking to the lady. And I told her, I was like, you can breathalyze me. I know I'm going to blow. And I blew a .27. She wanted to rush me to the hospital. And I was like, no, I promise you, this is normal for me. This is my normal. In hindsight, I should have went, because the next day, they put me in a room by myself in a recliner with a 13-inch TV and 3 VHS movies, like old school. And I've had withdrawals before, plenty of times, with all those back and forths. But this was worse than ever before. Shaking uncontrollably violently, freezing to death and sweating profusely, green bile, the whole nine. Just like full body convulsions. And I finally blew a .00, and then they were going to let me out with everybody else. So at this place, you had to dress out in scrubs. I dressed out, I sat down, I started playing spades, and then the next thing I know, I'm on a gurney sliding through sliding glass doors. And I asked the paramedic what happened, and she said, you had a seizure. And I told her, you must have grabbed the wrong one. Like she accidentally grabbed the wrong person having a seizure that day in the detox. And she said, feel your head. And I reached up and I had like a small football on the side of my head from where I was cracking the floor. And they kept me in the hallway because there was no rooms available after they did the test to confirm it was a seizure. And the doctor came up to me and started asking me questions like, what's your name? Who's the president? What year is it? And I couldn't answer the questions. I couldn't even think of the answers. And then when I did think of the answers, the wrong words came out of my mouth. And every time I tried to talk, my head would jerk to the side like this. And he said, well, that's probably temporary Tourette's. And everything's probably temporary. And that shook me to the core. Probably temporary. I'm 33 years old, and I've finally done it. I've been partying. I used to brag about partying with the edge of death. And now I've done it. I've caused myself permanent damage from drinking. And I knew the level of that bottom was so much sufficiently worse than any other bottom I ever had that, thank God, I finally hit that point. Then the doctor came in and told me I had 48 hours to a week before I would have had organ failure drinking the way I was. And I'm 33. I used to think the world would be better if I just went ahead and died in my sleep. But then when I was there and he told me, you're this close to it, it changed my mind real quick. I was like, oh, no. I'm just kidding about those thoughts. I want to live. And so that was July 3rd. July 4th, I'm in the ICU and I'm hooked up to all the stuff. In Chapel Hill, the football field is real close to the hospital. On July 4th, they have a giant fireworks get-together out there. My room is being lit up by these fireworks, and I'm just laying there in the bed. I can't control my bowels. I'm still shaking. My head's jerking. And I was thinking to myself, there's thousands of people out there having a great time. And I'm in here literally on my deathbed because I won't try the program. I won't try it. I say I try, but I know I'm lying because I don't. I have never taken any real action. Just enough action to make y'all think I'm trying, but then when I'm by myself, none. Absolutely none. So I thought, okay, this time I'll do it their way. I'm going to do everything they say and really do it, even if I never laugh or smile again. Because that's what I thought was going to happen. I was going to be a robot, just dole through life, just plotting along, but at least I'd be alive. And I'm here to tell you, anybody new, that is the furthest thing from the truth. We just had an hour and a half car ride, 4 of us, stone cold sober, laughed the whole way down, you know? And I didn't think that was possible. Like, what would you even talk about if you weren't talking about getting tore up? So anyway, now I decided, okay, I'm going to do it right. So I got out of there. I went back to that detox. I had to stay there for a little bit to get the drugs out of my system that they use to keep me alive. And then I went to right across the parking lot to this 90-day men's program. And the first meeting that I went to, I got a sponsor. And this time, I didn't get one that I thought I could manipulate. I got somebody that had what I wanted. He was chairing the meeting. He seemed happy and seemed like he was serene, you know, all the things that I wanted. And this time, I got honest with him and told him some of the things that were bothering me. Like, number one, the whole God thing, man. I don't know if I can really grasp that. I think that's going to be my downfall. And I used to get so jealous of people at meetings because during that back and forth time, I'd get like 3 months at a time sometimes, and I'd be at meetings and I'd get so jealous seeing other people grasp God so easy and faith so easy, and that like what is wrong with me? Why am I flawed? Why can't I believe in something like that? And so he said, well, you know, this program is designed so that you can have an educational variety of a spiritual experience. And I knew what that meant in theory, but not in reality. So he said, well, starting off, why don't you use the combined sobriety of our home group? Because we had the same home group. And that was something I could get behind. Because there's people in there with 40, 50 years of sobriety in Chapel Hill. So that's what I did at first. And it worked. And all of a sudden, I started getting some hope. Like, I wasn't progressively sliding back in life. And that's what I felt like I was doing for a decade, just falling back, drifting away. Now it felt like I did today better than yesterday. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt hopeful, and that became addictive. You know, I want more of that. What do I have to do? Just keep doing what you're doing. So then I got more honest with them. All right, well, I hear y'all talking about this fear thing. Man, I'm not scared of anything. Once again, I'm ego like through the roof. I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to drown or get burned alive, but I'm not scared of anything. And then he said, well, let me tell you some of the things I'm afraid of and see if you can relate to any of them. He said, the first one, I'll never forget it. He said, I'm terrified I might not get your approval. I'm terrified you might see through my mask. And I was like, but that's how I interact with life. What do you mean? That's everything. Like, my whole life, I was constantly worried about what I thought you thought of me. You know, and how can you live without worrying about that? And I heard another speaker one time say that getting me to understand what fear was like trying to explain water to a fish. Like, it was my ether. It was my everything. I was surrounded by it so much I didn't realize I was in it. And then I had to figure out, like, okay, well, if that means I have to figure out who I am. I had no idea who I was. I was who I thought you wanted me to be when I was around you, and who I thought you wanted to be when I was around you. And then, God forbid, if y'all got together, I had to come up with some kind of hybrid. And man, that's exhausting. You know, that is so exhausting. You know, and then there's 5 people. It's like, which chameleon am I now? But I was never me because I didn't know who I was ever. And anyway, so. And then more growth started to happen. So I wanted more of that, you know, because I've always liked more, whatever it is, more. And about 9 months into this, after 90 days, instead of going back around other people like I always did before that I knew, I stayed in Chapel Hill. I rented a house a mile away from the 90-day program. I got a job cleaning mold underneath houses with a company that everybody in it is in early recovery. This guy has like 3 years, he owns the company, and he picks up guys from Oxford houses, and we go clean mold on their houses. So I was like, that's good. I want to be around people. I don't care what kind of money I'm making right now. I just want to be around recovery all day. And we're on the way to work one day. I'm about 9 months sober. And this is a rough crew of guys, all less than 2 years of sobriety. And we're in this van that has a driver's seat and a passenger seat. There's 9 of us in the van. Everything else in the back of the van is like work equipment, but we're just like laid out on it on the way to work one day. And it dawned on me that I hadn't thought about a drink in a couple days at all. And then I thought about it a little bit harder. Like, man, it might have even been a couple weeks. And I didn't even think about it enough to give myself a pat on the back. I was just living. And I broke down crying like a baby. Because I thought the obsession being lifted was a bold-faced lie that y'all told me just to keep me coming back. There's no way the obsession could ever be lifted from somebody like me, ever. And then, so I'm crying in the van with all these guys, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. So I told them what was going on. They all started crying. They called, the crew leader called the boss, who's in recovery, like I said. He canceled the job for the day. We all went to an 8 o'clock meeting in Chapel Hill, then went to the park and played basketball all day, had lunch. Still to this day, I get choked up every time about it. Still to this day, it's my best day in recovery. It was just like, it was my first spiritual awakening, And it was just like, it was a bittersweet moment because like all my life I had been complaining, like if you wanted to argue or debate religion at the bar, I was your guy. I'd beat you down because I had all the facts, And then here I am living a miracle. The obsession being lifted from an alcoholic like me was a miracle. And what's a miracle? Divine intervention. So, shit. Sorry. But so it's like, man, all right, so there is something. And so that started a whole new path of like, okay, now what's this about? Like, how do I pray? I never was one for foxhole prayers, and I didn't believe, so I didn't do it. And I thought it was foolish, and now it's like, it's not. So how do I pray? So I didn't. Good thing is I didn't have any bad habits. I just didn't have a habit at all. So in the beginning it was, hey man, keep me sober today, and at night, appreciate it. And then after a couple months of that, it was the 3rd step prayer, every morning and every night. And I did that for about 2 years. I just do it silently in my head. And now it's a completely different relationship that I didn't think was possible. I never in a million years would have guessed that I would have a relationship with a higher power who I call God. And that's just gifts of the program. Because if y'all had told me from day one, here you go, you have to believe this way, I would have said nope, and I'd be dead. There's no way around it. There's no way I would have made it any longer out there the way I was drinking. And I was not going to believe what you wanted me to believe simply because you wanted me to believe it. I was that stubborn. But you allowed me the room to grow and to feel and to find it and to develop it. And it's an ongoing process, Where I met Doug at, I went to a spirituality retreat in West Virginia. If you'd have told me that 12 years ago, I would have laughed for 2 days. Me going to a spirituality retreat put on by priests and monks at a Catholic thing, no way. It's amazing. If any of the guys in here have ever heard about Matt Talbot retreat, I highly recommend it. And that's just one of the examples of amazing things that have happened once I got out of the way. All right? So after that part, another thing that I always like to bring up is, so I don't like when people go through every single one of the steps and how they work them and all that. But I am going to say, when I did the 4th step this time, I'd done it one time before, but it was all lies. And this time I'm going to do a fully honest and thorough 4th step. And I really thought when I did my 5th step with my sponsor that he was going to say, man, if anybody deserved to be an alcoholic, it was you. What a poor man. Yeah, what a victim. And instead, when I was reading it out to him, I was like, by the end, I'm like, man, I was self-centered. I can't believe I thought that I was the one being wronged. Like, holy, this is my handwriting too. There's no way to deny it. What? And like, I hear this all the time, like there was a weight lifted off my shoulders. That wasn't my reaction. My immediate reaction was, how do I fix this? What's next, man? I mean, here it is laid out right in front of me in my own handwriting, flaws, one after another, in an obvious pattern. I will manipulate you to get what I want, and I thought I was a people pleaser. Denial and perspective is just insane. So, from that moment on, I felt like for the first time that like I had a blueprint for life. I felt like as soon as I graduated college, when like I said, school was easy for me, so I thought life was supposed to be easy. But when I got out of school, I was just living for the moment, 24/7. Whatever made me feel better in that exact moment, or what I thought would make me feel better in that exact moment, was what I was doing. No direction, no anything. And now I had a design of flaws that I wanted to fix and a blueprint for life. So I got busy working on those. And, it's crazy. Like, you feel like you've worked on one. It's like whack-a-mole. You hit it, and then 3 more spurt out of it. And it's like, okay. Then you hit that one, and then 3 more spurt out. But it's progress, not perfection, right? So things are getting better. I'm about almost 2 years sober. And I had one toxic relationship when I first got sober, and she continued to drink, so I did the adult thing and broke it off responsibly. And which, that was the first for me, because usually I just sabotage and run. And then I stayed single, which was also a first for me, and went through the steps and practiced living this stuff in my life, right? I used to hear people say all the time, like, just do the work, do the work, do the work. And I always wondered, like, okay, are they referring to the steps, or is there something more? And then I had an epiphany. There is more. It's practicing these principles in all my affairs. It's living the program when I'm in the car and somebody cuts me off. It's being a helping hand to somebody when I'm not in the mood to be. That's the work. Whenever my knee-jerk reaction is to be selfish and self-centered, to go the opposite way and do the right thing against the grain. Because I still have those, like, my first reaction is 99% of the time wrong, and I have to think, pause, which I'm working on. I'm not great at pause, but I have to think and do the right thing. And man, it feels so good when the right thing just happens instantaneously, and you're like, whoa. How about that? I just did the right thing without even thinking about it that time. Yeah, that's great. But so I was about almost a year and 10 months sober, and I was talking to my sponsor about, I think it's time to meet a woman. But I worked, by this time I was working in landscaping with another guy in AA. And so I work with all guys. I don't go to bars. Where am I going to meet a woman at? I have no idea how. Every woman I've ever met before was at a bar or I worked with her. And he was like, well, why don't you try Tinder? So I did, tried Tinder. And one night, swiped right on this girl. She swiped right on me. And we were messaging each other back like pretty quickly, like zing, 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 back and forth. And I asked her what she was doing that night, and she said, I'm going to drink some wine and watch Grey's Anatomy with my friends. And I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to tell her the truth. Brutal honesty. So I said, that sounds great. I'm not judging you at all with this comment, but I'm an alcoholic with almost 2 years of sobriety. I have a home group. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor. I do service work. Like, the whole resume. Paragraph form. Send. And, before it was like I said, zing, 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 back and forth. 45 minutes go by, and I'm like, Okay, so maybe next time, just smooth and easy, like piece by piece. But then, after 45 minutes, she said, "That's the sexiest thing I ever heard a man say." And I was like, yes! Yes! Who would have thought that'd be a pickup line? Yeah. And then 2 years later, we got married. And then 9 months after that, or 11 months after that, we had our first. And then 17 months later, our second. And then almost 2 years ago, she got sober. And that's, all of that is amazing and a miracle, and I could not have walked through all of that without this. Like, first of all, I've never been in a real relationship before. I've been in plenty of quote-unquote relationships, but I'd never actually truly cared about another person's well-being and would put their well-being before mine. It was always me first and what I want to do, and if you're down for the ride, that's cool. If not, that's also cool. We can keep it moving. But so being an adult in a real relationship was new. And sponsorship and my group of friends helped out a lot. And then that moved on to marriage and like how to actually be a good husband and like what to do and how to do it. And my sponsor told me this. I've never said this behind the podium before, but my sponsor told me the trick to marriage is it's a 60-40 split, and both of you try to beat a 60. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I can get behind that. And so far, things have been great. And it's amazing being able to live the program in our house now, She's smiling at me right now. The things that we get to go through together in life, there really are no big deals, Something happens, it seems like a major deal at the time, but in reality, is it really worth losing my serenity over? These things too shall pass, and getting over those obstacles together, sometimes we don't handle them like two sober people, and sometimes we do, and sponsorship to me has been an amazing growth that I did not think was going to be part of my program early on. Well, let me take it back. When I first got to a year and my sponsor said, start raising your hand to sponsor people, I said, okay, man, I'm going to save the world. I can't wait to help all these guys. And then the first 12 of them got drunk in less than 2 months. And I thought, well, what am I doing wrong? And he asked me, he said, are you God? No, obviously I'm not. Only God could relieve their alcoholism. And I thought, okay. And he said, you just show them the way. You can't get them sober. You can't get them drunk. And so I've had a couple guys now make it all the way through the 12 steps. And miraculously, those are the only 2 guys that I've sponsored that have long-term sobriety. What a coincidence. And Greer, who I sponsor now, I've never had anybody that is that much on fire and that hungry for sobriety. And to the point where it made me step my game up. It's refreshing, I even went out and bought, y'all know Joe and Charlie, I'm sure. Joe wrote a book about sponsorship. I didn't even know that, like how to be a sponsor. I forgot exactly what it's titled. But I went out and bought that book and read it just because I was like, man, I don't know if I can bring it to the table like I need to for this guy. And but it's just with my wife coming in and now Greer and then the Matt Talbot guys, it's just like one thing keeps on happening after another. And like we were talking about this on the way down here, more gets peeled back and more is revealed, and you see more areas of growth. Every time that I start to feel like I'm at a plateau or I'm stagnant in growth, or maybe I can just coast for a little while, something happens that rejuvenates it, and the sky's the limit. I can't wait to see where this thing goes. When I was 2 years sober, I thought that I didn't know anything at 1 year. When I was 5 years sober, I didn't think I knew anything at 2 years. Now I'm 10 years sober, and I don't feel like I was even sober at 5 years. You understand? Like, it's amazing how it just keeps on growing and growing and growing. And I keep on getting the gift to give it back. Do things like this, get to share my story. And we go to Daymark, which is a little local rehab near our house, and we had a chance, me and my wife, a couple times to go in together and bring a meeting to the people inside, and that's just exhilarating. And there's so many things that I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful for the perspective to have that ability now. I used to take everything for granted, and now when I get the chance to sit back and look at what life has become, it's truly unreal. And it's all because of this program and rooms like this and people like y'all. I do like to say this, I'm going to end here in a minute because I feel like I'm about to start rambling. But if I could take back any of the things that I did that were humiliating or degrading or embarrassing and just wrong and ugly to any of the people in my life, I wouldn't take back any of them, because every one of them, those memories, led to the breaking point and led to me being in these rooms. And my favorite part of the promises is, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. Like, only in AA can all of that stuff be used as a tool to help a newcomer come in and relate and find their spot in AA. And I'm forever grateful for that. And Daniel, thank you very much for having me. That's all I got. Thank you.